Welcome back, world, to the Verbal Intercourse Podcast. Got your host, Nick Walker, back in the building with you today. Shout out to everybody that's been listening, supporting the podcast, subscribing to the podcast. Really appreciative over here at Verbal Intercourse Jackson. And just keep supporting us, man. We just working hard over here. Today got a special edition of Verbal Intercourse. We've been waiting for 5 years. The champ is back. The champ is here. Shout out to Kendrick Lamar, man, for dropping another classic album. I think it's a classic. I've only listened once. I've been fighting it like hell to listen to it more than one time. But for the sake of a initial review, an initial reaction, I only listened once to the album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. And it's an amazing piece of work from what I hear, from what I've heard after the initial reaction. Now, to kind of kick it off, I feel like it's very important that he dropped it in May because this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, which is very important because I feel like the majority of the population has suffered from some sort of depression or anxiety or some to that nature. And I think it's very important that we seek out help. And and the reason I said that is because I feel like this album, for what I've heard on that initial review, he's kind of telling us that we should definitely seek out help in his own special way in his own artistic way, rather. He did a great job of being very creative, as he always has been on this album. If you look at his previous works all the way back from Section 80 all the way until today, his artistic creativity has increased with each album. He's shown growth on each album. And I think on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I think he has reached the pinnacle of creativity, the pinnacle of introspection, of vulnerability that us, especially as black men, have not been accustomed to. I won't say we haven't been taught, because some of us has been taught to be able to express ourselves, be vulnerable, be introspective. But in this album, he pulls back the layers from start to finish. And I think that's very important as an artist, especially one that is so critically acclaimed like him and such on a superstar level like him, to be able to peel back those layers and show us exactly who he is, and that's what he did on this album. I'm not gonna go through the whole album, but from what I'm getting from it and what I was thinking about was that his previous album was called Damn, and it was released 5 years ago around about the same time. And I think that album was kind of telling us about how black people in America, how we have suffered from generational curses due from our ancestors, from his point of view, because he's speaking from a Hebrew Israelite point of view. I think this album is showing how those same generational curses manifested in him until he had to talk to someone about them. And I think this album is a summary of the roots of those generational curses. And I think it's just an amazing piece of work. If I had to name a favorite song off of the album right now, I definitely would say probably Rich Spirit. I love that song. I was very excited to see Baby Keem on the album, and I figured he would be on the album because I feel like because they're actual cousins and the fact that they have great chemistry together. Very excited to see the GOAT, one of the GOATs, one of the greatest of all time, Ghostface Killah on the album. I feel like that feature was for me because I'm a big Wu-Tang Clan fan. I'm a Clan member. I love Ghostface Killah music, and I thought that was amazing, man. He definitely got some tracks on here that are just that they're thought provoking. They're going to make us talk about things. And the root of this album is basically, to me, he's saying don't tap dance around the conversations that need to be had about the roots of our issues, the problems that we face on a day-to-day basis, seek out mental health, understand the roots of our problems so that we can have these conversations with these people and have a conversation with whoever we need to get that moment of clarity that we can finally move on with our lives. And I think that's very important. I mean, he covered so many areas on here. He talked about his own infidelity. He talked about his dealings with white women. He talked about and what's the root of it. He talked about peeling back your layers, peeling back all the materialistic things, and seeing that you're actually ugly once you take off all these things. He talked about so much, man. He talked about his relationship with his father. He talked about things that harmed him growing up. The conversations harmed him growing up. He just expressed himself in a way that very rarely artists express themselves in. And I think it was just a beautifully written. I think the production is amazing. The production is in a theater type form to me. It basically paints a picture. And of course, you know, Kendrick Lamar, he kind of has this balance beam in between jazz, spoken word, and rapping. And I think it's amazing because nobody else does it. And he's the only one that can pull it off. He's the only big time artist that can pull off complete artistic ideas and it go completely against the grain that everybody else in the industry. And I said this on Twitter not too long ago that I felt like with him having classics in Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, Damn, and this album, which is also a classic, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and also you can also put Section 80 in as a classic. He has improved his position to me from top 10 to top 5. Now I understand that might be a hot take for a lot of people, but how many legendary artists have 5 straight classic albums? Like I really find it hard to put somebody on that, because if you look at all the greats, the Nas, the Tupac, Jay-Z, Eminem, whoever you want to name, Lil Wayne, they don't have 5 straight classics. And I think it's very important that instead of all this hating shit, instead of all these people sharing these negative opinions, it's kind of just like watching LeBron or watching Kobe while he was there. You kind of want to sit back and live in the moment of greatness, because I feel like what he's putting out now is just this is his last album on Top Dog Entertainment, so you don't know what he's going to do next. So right now we need to just sit back and embrace the greatness of Kendrick Lamar. So let's get back to the album. As I look through the track list, man, like I said, my favorite song right now is probably Rich Spirit. We Cry Together. We Cry Together is one that's very popular on social media right now. I feel like us, the millennial group, and I feel like any generation can relate to it. And it's basically a argument between a man and a woman, and they basically getting at each other. They throwing low blows, and it ends with them having sex. It's a toxic relationship track, and the imagery is amazing. It's like when I heard the song, I vividly I vividly had an image in my head, and I could see, myself arguing with someone, or a random individual arguing with someone, and it ends intimately. Like, that's that toxic shit that you need to get away from. I think if anybody listens to this, if you living like the people on We Cry Together, I think y'all probably need to break up, bro. That shit is unhealthy, but it's important that he has something like that on there because it shows us the conversation, the argument that they're having. It shows all the insecurities on both sides, the root of the issues within the man and the woman, and that, I mean, that's basically what you see on social media all day. Men attacking women, women attacking men. And to me, this is a microcosm of society when it comes to black people having marriages, relationships, all that type of stuff. I'm sure we have, statistically, we have a lot of good and fruitful relationships, but we also have a lot of bad and negative and toxic relationships out here. And I think when we take a step back and look at some of the generational curses that have been passed down due to parents, society, and have these conversations with each other, I think the black relationship would do better. This album, from what I've heard on the initial review and the initial reaction, is basically about Kendrick Lamar. He on the cover of this album, he's wearing crown thorns like Jesus the Savior, and he has a gun tucked in his pants, and he's with his wife and his children. I think he's basically saying that he's not the savior for us. He's not our savior, but he is the savior for his family because he is the one that has bared the cross for the generational curses of his family. So he's trying to knock down all the generational curses for his children and the children after, and his great grandkids and all of the descendants of Kendrick Lamar. And I thought that was just amazing because I feel like the majority of millennials are trying to do the same thing, knock down those generational curses of my father didn't let me show emotions, knock down those generational curses of my mother was domestically or sexually abused, and knock down that communication barrier between family members of different generations and genders that I feel like we need to have as a community. And I really feel like this piece of work is very special. I could talk days and days on this album, and I'm sure I will over Twitter and on the podcast some. So yeah, just stay with us and support Verbal Intercourse Jackson podcast, and we out. Peace.